your command. Our will shall be done. In Asharo's name. For the Empress. Brilliant. Yes. In Asharo's name. For the Empress. I grow anxious to act.
Agreed. Very well. Greetings. What?
Hello.
What is it now?
Welcome to our village.
Give me something to do!
What, mortal? That was my plan. I must hunt soon. Greetings. You thought of that? You thought of that? That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. Very well. What is it now? Greetings. What is it now? That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. I must hunt soon. What, mortal? Agreed. What is it now? Very well. Greetings. I must hunt soon. What, mortal? You thought of that? That was my plan. That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. Very well. Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. Greetings. You thought of that? What? Agreed. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. What is it now? You thought of that? Very well. That was my plan. Agreed. Very well. Must hunt soon. You thought of that? That was my plan. That was my plan. I hunger. Agreed. That. Very well. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. That was my plan. Death rages. Agreed. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. I hunger. You thought of that? Very well. That was my plan. Death rages. You thought of that? Agreed. You thought of that? Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. I hunger. Very well. Die. Death rages. Death rages. I hunger. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that? You thought of that? Agreed. That was my plan. Very well. I hunger. That was my plan. Death rages. You thought of that? Agreed. Very well. You thought of that? Agreed. Die. That was my plan. What is it now? You thought of that? I must hunt soon. Death rages. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. Very well. Agreed. You thought of that? That was my plan. I hunger. Agreed. was my plan. Thought of that very well. Courageous. That was my plan. That was my plan. Agreed. You thought of that? You thought of that? Agreed. Very well. That was my plan. I hunger. That was my plan. I hunger. Courageous. You thought of that? Very well. That was my plan. Agreed. I hunger. Death rages. That was my plan. Very well. You thought of that? That was my plan. Death rages.
Our brethren's town is under attack.
Agreed. You thought of that? What is it now? That was my plan. What? Die. You thought of that? That was my plan. That was my plan. Very well. You thought of that? Agreed. I must hunt soon. What is it now? Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. Agreed. I hunger. Very well. That was my plan. Death rages. You thought of that? That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. Very well. Die. I hunger. That was my plan. Death rages. I hunger. You thought of that? Very well. Agreed.
First blood.
Plan. What, mortal? Death rages. I hunger. Must hunt soon.
Our brethren's town is under attack.
That was my plan. Greetings. What is it now? I must hunt soon. What, mortal? I must hunt soon.
Our brethren's town is under attack.
Greetings. What is it now? What, mortal? What, mortal?
Wait till you see me about.
Greetings. What is it now? What, mortal? Greetings. You thought of that? That was my plan. Greetings. I hunger. That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? was my plan. What is it? Very well. What is it now? Agreed. What is that? I hunger. Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that? What, mortal? Agreed. That was my plan. Greetings. I must hunt soon. Greetings. Very well. You thought of that? I must hunt soon. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. You thought of that? Your soul is mine.
Our brethren's town is under attack.
I hunger. Death rages. Agreed. I hunger. Death rages. Death rages. Very well. What I Greetings. I hunger.
Our brethren's town is under attack. Our brethren's town is under attack.
That was my plan. That was my plan. Very well. What is it now?
Our brethren's town is under attack.
The time has come. At last.
Greetings, my lord.
Quickly.
Our brethren's town is under attack.
Nice excellence. What is it now? You thought of that? Greetings.
Welcome to our village.
What, mortal?
Our brethren's town is under attack.
Greetings. What is it now?
Our brethren's town is under attack.
That was my plan. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. That
Our
was
brethren's
my
town
plan.
is under attack.
Thought of that? Very well. You thought of that? Very well. Agreed. That was my plan. Agreed.
Our brethren's
You
town
thought
is
of
under
that?
attack.
Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. Your soul is mine. That was my plan. Very well. That was my
Our
plan.
brethren's town is under attack.
Thought of that. I hunger. Death rages. Double kill. What night beckons. I must hunt soon. Greetings. What, mortal? Agreed. Very well.
Our brethren's town
What
is
is
under
it
attack.
now? I hunger. What is it now? That was my plan. That was my plan. Agreed. Very well. What? That. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. You thought of that. Very well. Greetings. I must hunt soon. I must hunt soon. You thought of that. That was my plan.
I wish only to serve.
What is it now?
Our brethren's town is under attack.
That was my plan. You thought of that. Agreed. That was my plan. Death rages. You thought of that? Very well. Agreed. Agreed. That was my plan. That. What? That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. Agreed. Very well. You thought of that. You thought of that? Greetings. That was my plan. Agreed. You thought of that. Very well. That was my plan. I hunger. Killing spree. Rages. Agreed. Very well. You thought of that? What is it now? Die. That was my plan. Very well. You thought of that. Agreed. That was my plan. That was my plan. You thought of that. Very well. Agreed. That was my plan. Agreed. You thought of that. Very well. That was my plan. Very well. You thought of that. What, mortal? Greetings.
Hello.
What, mortal? Greetings. Agreed. I must hunt soon. What is it now? I must hunt soon. What, mortal? That was my plan. Very well. What is it now? Death rages. You thought of that. Agreed. Greetings. That was my plan. That was my plan. Agreed. What, mortal? I hunger. Agreed. That was my plan. damned. At last, night beckons. My plan. Death rages. Agreed. You thought of that. Agreed. That was my plan. Very well. You thought of that. That was my plan. I must hunt soon. Agreed. Very well. You thought of that. That was my plan. Die. Very well. Die. That was my plan. You thought of that. I hunger.
Our brethren's town is under attack.
Death rages. You thought of double kill. What is it now? Death rages. That was my plan. You thought of that. Your soul is mine.
Our brethren's town is under attack.
Is my aid required?
How may I serve?
That was my plan. That was my plan. Agreed. Very well. Killing spree. I must hunt soon. That was my plan. What is it now? What, mortal? Very well. I must hunt soon. I hunger. Agreed. Die. That was my plan. Thought of that. Agreed.
Our brethren's
That
town
was
is
my
under
plan.
attack.
Very well. Agreed. Thought of that. Agreed. That was my plan. Thought of that. Very well. Greetings. Agreed. You thought of that. That was my plan. That was my plan. That was my plan. What? I hunger. That was my plan. I must hunt soon.
Welcome to our
What?
village.
Killing spree. I must hunt soon. What is it now? Agreed. You thought of that? Very well. That was my plan. Greetings. Death rages. You thought of that? That was my plan. Very well. Greetings. Agreed. What is it now? Very well. I must hunt soon. That was my plan. Thought of that. What? That was my plan. Soon. Agreed. I hunt. That was my plan. That was my plan. You thought of that. That was my plan. You thought of that. That was my plan. That was my plan.
Triple kill! Dominating. Ultra kill. Our brethren's town is under attack.
What is it? Echoes. What? You thought of that? What is it now? That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. Very well. Death rages. That was my plan. Agreed.
Hello.
I must hunt soon. Very well. Agreed.
Greetings, my lord.
What, mortal? That was my plan. What, mortal? You thought of that? That was my plan. Agreed. Die. What is it now? Thought of that? Very well. That was my plan. I must hunt soon. Greetings. What is it now? I must hunt soon. You thought of that? That was my plan. Death rages. What mortal? Greetings. That was my plan. Greetings. What, mortal? You thought of that? Agreed. I must hunt soon. Very well. Very well. Agreed. You thought of that? What is it now? What? That was my plan. You thought of that? Greetings. I must hunt soon. That was my plan. What is it now? What is it now? I must hunt soon. That was my plan.
blade.
Though I be damned. At last,
Welcome to our village.
What, mortal? That? Very well. I must hunt soon. Agreed. You thought of that? That was my plan. What is it now? Greetings. You thought of that? What, mortal? Very well. Agreed. You thought of that? Agreed. That was my plan. Thought of that? Greetings. What is it now? I must hunt soon. That was my plan. Very well.
Our
Agreed.
forces are under attack.
What, mortal? That was my plan. I must hunt soon. Greetings. Agreed. Very well. You thought of that? That was my plan. Very well. You thought of that? Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that?
This town is under attack.
What is it now? Agreed. What? That was my plan. That was my plan. Thought of that.
Our veteran's town is under attack.
That was my plan. What more? Very right. That was my plan. Unstoppable. Wicked stay here. That was my plan. You thought of that? Very well. Agreed. Your soul is mine. That was my plan. What is it now? What that? Death rages. I hunger. That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan. What is it now? Agreed. I hunger. I must hunt soon.
Welcome to our village.
What? That was my plan. Greetings. What, mortal? I must hunt soon. Agreed. That was my plan. Death rages. What is it? Very well. What, mortal? You thought of that? Greetings. I must hunt soon. Very well. You thought of that? That was my plan. What that?
Our forces are under attack.
What is it now? That was my plan. You thought of that? and calm. At last, though I be damned, at last. Agreed. You thought of that? I hunger. Agreed. That is my plan. Very well. Agreed. You thought of that?
Yes, right away. That sounds logical. Indeed. That sounds logical.
Our brethren's town is under attack.
Yes, right away. That sounds logical.